Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the Starfinder spell card. So yes, this is the Starfinder version of the spell card collection. We've already reviewed several of the Pathfinder 2nd edition sets on this channel, but this is one that I'm really excited about. I love Starfinder. It's actually what got me into Paizo RPGs in the first place. So anytime something like new accessory or whatever book or anything comes out for it, I'm pretty excited. Before I get any further into this video, though, I do want to make it clear, for transparency's sake, that Paizo did send these cards to me for the purposes of doing this review video. However, as is always the case, they're not scripting the video, they're not paying me for the video, they're not pre-screening it or demanding a positive review. So the opinions that I give in this video, as always, are 100% completely and totally my own. But again, I really want to dive into this because, like I said, Starfinder is a game that I absolutely love, and it feels like it's kind of becoming underrated these days. Like, there hasn't been a ton of stuff coming out for Starfinder aside from like maps and adventure paths lately. So it's really cool to see like some real accessories start to come out. It's actually been a while, I think, since the last time we had like a set of like card-based accessories for this RPG. So we'll take a look at the packaging first before I break it out of the plastic. So we got the Starfinder spell cards, and then we got this like lightning bolt symbol there. And then on the top of the box, we just have an example of what the card looks like. Starfinder spell cards. We've also got another symbol here. I think these are for the different classes. So I want to say that might be Technomancer. I believe that is the Witch Warper, I believe is the class. Oh no, sorry, that's the Witch Warper. I think that's the Mystic. And then, yeah, so we got the other symbol there. And then we just have on the back here, it says, hold the magic of the galaxy in your hands with Starfinder spell cards. The must-have accessory no science fantasy hero can do without. This box features more than 250 spell reference cards covering every spell in the Starfinder core rulebook and the Starfinder character operations manual, giving your players instant access to game details at a glance. And for MSRP, this retails for $34.99 US. The Canadian price will vary, but I think typically I think for something like this, we're probably around 45. I think we're about $10 more, give or take. Different stores will charge different amounts. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take it out of the plastic, and we will have a look and see what we got for the cards. There are 3 spellcasting classes in Pathfinder, or Starfinder. I'm really not used to talking about Starfinder spell cards, obviously. But in Starfinder, there are 3 spellcasting classes, though I'm not sure if they actually will have 3 separate sets of cards, since they have the symbol for all 3 on the back of the card. But we'll have a look and see what we've got here. So, like I said, just gonna take a second to get the plastic off, and then we will dive a little bit deeper into this. All right, so we got the cards out of the plastic here. So let's just take a look and see exactly what it is that we have. Like I said, I don't think these are going to be separated by the class like we had in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Largely just because of the fact that, like I said, there's only 3 spellcasting classes, and magic in Starfinder is a lot more limited than it is in something like Pathfinder. Like, I think there's only 6 levels of spells, 5 or 6 levels of spells in Starfinder. We'll take a look here, but yeah, let's just sort of get right into it. So the first thing we got is just our instructions card. And again, you see the symbol on the back there, which again, that is, I think that's Technomancer, Mystic, and I think Witch Warper is the name of the other one. So these 2 would have been from the core rulebook, and this was the spellcasting class introduced in the character operations manual. But yeah, it just says, so this deck includes all spells from the Starfinder core rulebook and the character operations manual. The full text for each spell is provided wherever possible, though some longer or more complex spells have been abbreviated. All cards include a page reference to the full spell descriptions in their respective books, and the complete rules for spellcasting begin on page 330 of the core rulebook. So already what we've got is actually a little bit different, I believe, than the Pathfinder spell cards, because I think this actually gives you page references for every single spell, regardless of whether it's like if even if it doesn't it isn't so complex or so long a spell description that they need or that they can fit it on the card. So in this one, they just give you exactly what page these spells are on regardless. So I think that's actually kind of neat. So let's just take a look at Acid Rain here, and we'll go through and see. So we've got the card information. So we got the spell name. And it's kind of small to see, but I'll see if I can get this to zoom in. Or not zoom in, but focus. So this is a Witch Warper 5th level spell. So again, I don't think we're going to have like the spells broken out or have multiple copies of this one. I think it's just, again, spellcasting is such a minor part of Starfinder compared to like fantasy RPGs, like medieval fantasy, that it's possible to really just have no, like I've run 3 different groups for Starfinder, and I don't think I had a single person play a spellcaster in any of those groups. So it does sort of make sense to me. But we got the class that's associated with it. We've got the school information, the casting time, the range, so 400 feet and 40 feet for every level of spellcaster that you are. Area is a cylinder, and duration is 1 round per level. And then it's got the saving throw type and whether spell resistance applies or not. And then it just gives you basically the information. So it fits all the information there on the front of the card. But this, because it's the Witch Warper class, obviously it makes sense that the spell would be in the character operations manual. But I think what's actually also going to be really cool about these cards, especially with the Witch Warper, is I want to say that there were spells that the Witch Warper had access to that were in the core rulebook. What's kind of neat is that if that's the case, then now you've got like the copy of the card, and you also have like know which page it is, and you can just look at the spell's name and see that it's part of the Witch Warper class. So I think that's kind of a useful thing when it comes to especially to the Witch Warper, where it appeared in different books. So that's that one. Let's just take a look at Animate Dead, and this is actually going to be perfect. Because there's something that I wanted to see on the back here, or if some of the cards with longer descriptions actually use the back of the card, and it says right there, continued on the back. But this is Animate Dead, which is a Mystic and Technomancer spell. I'm not going to go through every single card in here, just because it's every spell from the 2 books. So if you've got the books, you know which spells are in there. And, again, there may be some spells that are a bit too complex to fit on both sides of a card, so you probably want to have both books anyway. But yeah, so we got Animate Dead, and again, you got all the information there, Mystic, Technomancer, and on the back, we actually have the rest of the spell description. So, similar, and they actually have the page reference on both sides of the card, so that's actually kind of neat as well. I actually do like that. So, yeah, if the description is longer than what would fit on one side of the card, even though they have the page reference there, they do still use the back of the card, which I think is a really nice detail there as well. So, like I said, I'm not going to go through every single one of these just because there's so much to go through, but I just want to see if we've got any examples of one that has... Yeah, so here we go. Arcane Sight. So this is one of the ones that, again, it's a core rulebook spell. But the Witch Warper class, which even though it was in the character operations manual, some of its spells were in the core rulebook. And this is an example because you've got Arcane Sight, and it is a Technomancer and Witch Warper spell. So actually, again, I really like that. If you like the Witch Warper, it's nice to know which ones come from which book. And yeah, I think that's actually just, again, like a really nice touch. And so there you go. And the cards, they're easy to read. The print, I feel like the print might be a little bit smaller than the print on the cards for the Pathfinder spell cards, but honestly, that could also just be like my imagination. Actually, you know what? I have, if I can reach it, I have my Secrets of Magic spell cards just off camera here. So let's just take a quick look. And we'll just compare. Okay, yeah. So I guess I wasn't mistaken there. So the text is smaller on the Starfinder ones, but I think it's just because the spells might have a little bit more description to them in the first place, or it's just the way that I think may have worked best for them. So the print is a little bit smaller, so that is one thing to keep in mind. If you have difficulty with small print, then you may want to make sure you have glasses or a magnifying glass or something nearby in order to make it a little bit easier to go through and read these. But again, overall though, it's still got a lot of really great stuff in here, and like I said, it's every single spell from the Starfinder core rulebook and the character operations manual. So the one thing that I really want to see is if any of these cards actually, because the smaller print and they do use both sides, I am curious to see if any of these spells actually utilize or require you to still look in the core rulebook or in the specific books. So I'm just going to do this really quick here. So basically what you would pretty much need is the backside to be completely filled up. So this is okay. So this is probably the closest that we've come here. Holographic image. So this fully uses both sides of the card. And something tells me this is probably one of the reasons why the printing is smaller on this one, is probably for like a spell like this, where if they shrink the font size down just enough, then they can fit the full spell on the card. So it's a bit of a trade-off, but it's one that I'm willing to accept. I have glasses that I have to use sometimes when I'm reading now. So, but yeah, I don't think there's many of these spells that would actually require you to look in the book. But if you wanted to, the page reference is still there. So let's just take a look at the. And I'm just looking at the back sides to see which ones. Actually, so again, we've got another one here, Reincarnate, which also takes up the full front and back, but it's the full spell description, so they don't actually say, for further information. So that's pretty good. So again, I think it's, for those couple of spells or handful of spells where they really end up using, like fully using both sides of the card, like planar binding. I think that's basically why. So they shrunk the font size down because there are just... Even though it's only a few, it's enough that, they want the cards, I guess, to stand on their own. So I guess you really don't need the books necessarily to make use of this card set, although you can't play the Witch Warper without the book, I guess. Okay, that's the Open Gaming License information. So let's just see, again, if any of these spell cards... So again, that's Teleport. So Teleport has all the information on there, but it makes maximum use of the sides of the card, as does Telekinesis. Okay. Yeah, so there's a handful of cards that really require both the smaller font and the use of both sides of the cards, but the thing that I appreciate is that it looks like every single card in this set basically has you covered. So like, even though it has the page references for the spells, you don't actually need them. Like, it doesn't look like any of them really say, for the complete, spell description, please consult page such and such in whichever book it is. So I actually do really appreciate that. Again, it makes sense that they went with the smaller font size to eliminate the need for you to necessarily have to rely on the books when you're trying to get your spell information. The small print is, like I said, it's a little bit of a trade-off. So you have the convenience of not having to consult the books, even though you've got the page references. But the trade-off is that it might be a little bit harder for people to read that, have issues with small print. So this is something, if I were to use it, I would definitely have to have my glasses on in order to make use of these cards, because it would probably strain my eyes a little bit if I were using these pretty regularly without my glasses on. But overall, I think it's still it's a really solid product. And if the Starfinder spellcasting system actually was more in depth, similar to the fantasy version, like the Pathfinder RPG, then I think what you would probably see is if there were like 9 levels of spells, I'm pretty sure that they would release, maybe not necessarily individual sets, but they would probably have a box sort of similar to the Secrets of Magic one and have it divided by the 3 spellcasting classes. But there's a lot of overlap with the spells, and there's not a lot of like spells or spell levels to begin with. So I understand the reasoning behind having just one copy of each spell card in this particular case. Again, it's just the fact that spellcasting isn't as big a part of Starfinder as it is in Pathfinder. And again, from my own personal experience, I've run multiple groups where not a single character was actually playing one of the casting classes. In fact, the only I never got to run a game after the character operations manual came out, but the groups that I was running before that, there was a lot of like mechanics and soldiers, and someone was playing like an envoy, but nobody played an actual like spellcaster in that system. So I think it's just one of those things where the demand isn't quite as high to separate the cards into 3 separate decks like you might have if spellcasting was a much larger component of the game. Again, that's just my own speculation, but it does make sense to me, and I understand the reasoning by it. I understand the reasoning also for the smaller font, and I will say I appreciate the fact that the card font is consistent throughout the entire product. Like, I've seen people make arguments that, if you don't need the font to be small, you could have it sort of sized appropriately for the amount of text that goes on the card. But honestly, I find if I'm looking through multiple cards and the text size keeps changing between them, that bugs me a lot too. So I appreciate the fact that they stuck with the smaller font all through it. And I appreciate the fact that they did that so that none of the spells require you to have to go to the book. They, managed to fit all the spell description on each of the cards, which I think is really cool. But at the same time, the touch of having the page number included, if you wanted to look at the full spell description, I like that as well. I just think that, again, that's kind of a handy resource. And it's also great because if you have a player at your table that has these card sets, for example, but another player doesn't, if they have the card, if they share a spell in common, then the player with the card set, if they don't, pass the cards along, or even if you're playing with like an online group, which is more realistic for this day and age, then they could simply say, well, this is the spell, this is the page that it's on in this book, and then it will make it easier for the player to look it up. So I do actually like that quite a bit. Overall, I think this is, again, a really solid product. Spell cards are just fantastic overall, and the Paizo family of spell card accessories it never fails to impress, right? I've never been disappointed in any of these, and I think this is totally worthwhile if you are someone who's into Starfinder, or if you are a game master who loves running Starfinder. This is a great accessory to pick up, and one that I do highly recommend. So once again, I want to thank Paizo for sending this along. Your accessories, as always, are definitely high quality. I do appreciate them. And let me know in the comments, anyone watching this, have you played a spellcasting class in Starfinder, or what are your experiences with spellcasting in the Starfinder RPG in general? Was someone a fellow player, a character who made a character that could cast spells, or were you a game master and had NPCs or enemies that could use spells? Or were you just running for a group that had like spellcasters in it? Because I've just never had the experience of running a game with a spellcaster in it for Starfinder. So I'd love to hear other people's experiences in the comment section below. And I want to thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your day to watch this video. Every single view, I assure you, is deeply appreciated. And I can't thank you enough. So thank you very much. I really do mean it. So yeah, there we go. So that was the Starfinder spell card set. So thank you guys again very much for watching. I appreciate it, and I will see you all next time. Until then, take care.